The new law that increases a tax on vaping products takes effect in a little over a week. But as Sabrina Wilson reports, some vape shop owners say it's not the tax hike that bothers them the most about the law, it's the other changes.
A new law takes effect in Louisiana next month, affecting vaping products.
Basically, what we've done is we've increased the excise tax placed on vape products. Currently, it's 5 cents. On July 1, it will go to 15 cents per milliliter.
Representative Paul Hollis of Covington authored the bill that became Act 414 once signed by Governor Edwards. Revenues from the higher tax will benefit Louisiana State Police.
We put this vape tax and we dedicate it to the state police salaries that I think and the legislature obviously believes are long overdue.
I'm actually not opposed to a tax increase within reason, and I find it's in a reasonable amount. Because frankly, the state has been losing money recently because so many people within my own business are transitioning from cigarettes to e-cigarettes, and the state's no longer collecting that revenue.
But Landon Nakan, who owns Gotta Stop in Houma, takes issue with other parts of the new law. Under the law, beginning on October 1, every vape product manufacturer and makers of alternative nicotine products that are sold in Louisiana will have to execute and deliver a certification to the Commissioner of the Louisiana Office of Alcohol and Tobacco Control, stating that the product was on the market in the U.S. as of August 2016.
It pretty much only legally allows for 3 remaining products to remain on the market.
And the ATC commissioner must develop and maintain a directory listing all vape and alternative nicotine product manufacturers that have provided certifications that comply with the law.
That's actually something the tobacco industry came to me as an author. In my original bill, it wasn't in there, but it's an idea for a registry. From my perspective, it helps because it's going to keep a lot of the rogue products off the market. That's been a concern of mine.
Vape shop owners, including Nakan, tell Fox 8 they believe the law will benefit big tobacco companies while hurting small businesses. Nakan thinks it will also affect flavored products, even though a bill targeting just that didn't make it out of the legislature.
This particular law about the directory would effectually ban flavored e-cigarettes.
I think that everybody's entitled to their viewpoint and they've got different perspectives.
Some vape shop owners are considering litigation over the new law.